Welcome everyone to the beginning of Draft League content on my channel. My name is PlatinumHowler and I've been waiting a long time to start making my own videos, and I think 2019 is finally the year. I'm excited to get this going. This is the draft analysis for the IBL D-League commissioned by DarkDevil26. The league consists of 10 coaches that I've never played. Well, I'm one of the coaches, so the 9 other coaches, I have not played them before at all. So we'll play each one of them once each for a 9-week regular season. And then the top 6 coaches will make playoffs. Top 2 will get a bye to the semifinals. And then the 3 through 6 will play in the quarterfinals. So that's going to be our goal for the season, is to make the playoffs and crack the top 6. So shoot for a 5-4 or better record. Let's just go for a positive record, hope make playoffs and see what we can do from there. So on to the draft now. This draft was it was structured very differently from the drafts that I've done in the past. Usually I've done tier drafts, your typical five tiers of points, like tier 1 is 180, tier 2 is 120, tier 3 is 100, and you're supposed to take a certain amount of Pokemon from each tier, and then you have some free points to spend at the end. But this draft is a little bit different. Instead of your usual 5 tiers, the IBL draft had 10 tiers, and you're allowed to take between 8 to 11 Pokemon. You're not forced to take 11 Pokemon. You can take fewer, and you can take fewer higher valued Pokemon, or you can take more lower valued Pokemon. There's much more leeway in the way that you're allowed to build your draft. So the 10 tiers, the tier 1 is worth 180 points, and then each tier goes down in increments of 20 points. So tier 2 is 160, tier 3 is 140, and then the lowest tier, the 10th tier, is only worth 10 points. So with this structure of drafting that I'm not used to, going into the draft, I wasn't overly confident that I was going to be able to draft well and end up with a team that I was happy with. But I have to say, it turns out I had nothing to worry about. I had plenty of points to go around, and I definitely was able to grab a solid team for myself that I am very excited to use. So for the first round, I had the 6th overall pick, which is funny because it's the furthest away from the wheel that I've ever been in a draft. I'm usually like third from the wheel, so like I pick and then 2 other people make their 2 picks and then it's back to me. So being 6th in a 10-person draft, I had to wait on 4 people to make 2 picks before it got back to me for the second round at least. But so with my first pick, 6th overall pick, I wanted to grab a speedy threat that partners well with the Mega that I had my eye on, that I'm gonna hold off on for a little bit. I'm gonna grab that a little later. Our first pick is going to be none other than Infernape. Now, shout out to Frostfire, who is my #1 supporter in the IBL server. Infernape is his favorite mon, that and Tapu Koko, which he cannot seem to live without in draft format. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get Koko. Koko was the first overall pick, to the surprise of nobody. But Infernape is a mon that I have used very, very little in the past, and never in draft format. It's a tier 3 mon, so it was worth 140 points, and I made it my first Z captain. So the way that Z points work in this league is you have 200 points to work with. So say you wanted to make Infernape a Z mon, because Infernape was in tier 3 and it's worth 140 points. If you want to make Infernape a Z-Mon, you have to use 140 points of your 200 Z-point budget towards that. So that means with Infernape being my first Z-Mon, I have 60 points to allocate to Z-Mons for the rest of the draft. Infernape being a tier 3 and only costing 140 Z points, I think is a very good value. As a Z move user, it gets phenomenal coverage. Z Flare Blitz, Z Close Combat on the physical side. Those are its stabs, of course. And then it can tech on a Gigavolt Havoc based off of a Thunder Punch to help break through a bulky water type that it's having problem with. Or it can tack on a Acid Downpour based off a Gunk Shot to deal with a Fairy that it's having problems with. And I also think that Z moves make special sets of Infernape a lot more viable. Its stabs on the special side being like Fire Blast and Focus Blast are pretty inaccurate, so Z moves being able to power those moves up and make them 100% accurate is really nice. Now, in my opinion, Infernape is the second most versatile offensive mon in the draft format next to Victini, and arguably it's a better Z move user than Victini, and in this league it costs fewer points to make it a Z move user than it would cost Victini to use Z moves. Now, I'm not saying that Infernape is as good as Victini itself. Of course, Infernape doesn't have access to stuff like V-Create or Blue Flare or Bolt Strike, but it does have higher base stats in its offenses, both attack and special attack, and it's also faster than Victini. So when you think about it, from an offensive standpoint, what does Infernape not do well, really? It is a great Z-move user, it's a great choice item user, it's an exceptional setup mon, its setup options are crazy. It has Work Up to boost attack and special attack if it wants to be a mixed attacker, Bulk Up, Calm Mind, Swords Dance, Nasty Plot, you name it. Like, this thing can set up in any way it wants to, almost, except if it wants to boost its speed, it has to use something like Z Sunny Day, which is also a very viable set. Also, the fact that it gets Mach Punch for physical priority and Vacuum Wave for special priority, never mind the fact that its hidden ability Iron Fist boosts the power of Mach Punch. This thing is just incredible. It's one of those mons that's rarely going to have a poor matchup any given week. Oh, and not to mention the fact that it's a fire type that resists Stealth Rocks, which is huge because it's able to come in and out of the... It's able to switch in and out so much more often than most fire types are, being weak to rocks and whatnot. And it's able to set them as well. It can set Stealth Rocks on your opponent's side of battle. Now, I don't necessarily see myself using Infernape as a Stealth Rock setter very often, but if I need it, it's there, and that's awesome. Now, for my second pick, I have to give another shout out here to my friend Ian. He recently used the Mega that I had my eye on to take later on in the draft. He recently used that Mega, so asked him for some advice on what some good partners would be, and he pointed out that that particular Mega didn't really like dealing with status very much, so getting a reliable cleric to support it was pretty key, and I did definitely agree with him on that one, so that's why I decided to grab Sylveon for my second pick. Whenever I think about reliable clerics, my mind always trends in the direction of the evolutions at first, because it's not difficult to actually fit something like Heal Bell or Aromatherapy into their moveset. You know, if you're running the typical bulky cleric set on any given evolution, whether it be Vaporeon, Sylveon, or Umbreon, typically its moveset is going to be Wish, Protect. In Sylveon's case, it's likely going to carry Hyper Voice, which actually deals a significant amount of damage thanks to its Pixelate ability. And then its fourth move is usually going to be something like Toxic or Heal Bell. Its moveset really isn't that deep. It doesn't. You're not often going to run anything else other than Toxic or Heal Bell on that kind of set. So, like, it's not hard to fit into the moveset, so that's why it's one of the better clerics in this format, in my opinion. Other than running the standard bulky, annoying cleric set, it definitely has the potential to be a potent wall breaker. Now, its special attack stat is good. It's not great like your premier special wall breakers like Volcanion or something like that, but Pixelate boosted Hyper Voice, especially if you slap on a choice specs to that thing, is going to be dealing a lot of damage even to mons that resist it. Really, Sylveon is just a reliable, bulky wall that's going to be able to take the hits that it needs. And my only complaint about Sylveon would probably be that its physical defense leaves something to be desired. Its high HP makes up for its low base 65 defense, but in most cases it's able to take the physical hits that it needs to. It often will invest fully in defense because its special defense is so high it very rarely ever even needs to invest in special defense. So yeah, I don't really have that much else to say about Sylveon, honestly. It's a bulky fairy, and it's going to do cleric things, or it's going to punch holes through teams with Hyper Voice. Now, everybody knows how valuable it is to have a fast electric type on your Draft League roster. So for my next pick, I'm going to grab one of my favorite electric types in the format, and that is Raikou. Raikou came out of Tier 3 worth 140 points, just like Infernape. And the reason why Raikou is one of my favorite electric types is that it's not frail. So many fast electric types are not able to switch into any hit. What's so appealing about electric types to me is that they resist flying, and flying is a very potent offensive type. But often electric types like Jolteon and Heliolisk or Manectric are really frail mons that do not count as switch-ins to powerful flying types such as like Staraptor or Braviary or something like that. Mega Pidgeot's Hurricane. But Raikou with its bulk is definitely able to switch in once or twice to said flying types. Raikou and Rotom Heat is the other electric type that I really like using in the format. So you see Raikou here displayed in its shiny form because of the exclusive moves that it gets via distribution years ago. There was a shiny Raikou distribution, and it's the only way to get Aura Sphere on your Raikou. But it also gets some other moves in that same distribution. It gets Extreme Speed, which is more known for being run on banded Adamant Entei sets, but Raikou and Suicune also get Extreme Speed, and it also gets access to Weather Ball, which is pretty cool because if you are able to set up a Rain Dance with Raikou, as Raikou does have access to Rain Dance and it gets access to Sunny Day as well, you can have a powerful rain boosted 100 base power Weather Ball water type to hit the ground types that are easily able to wall Raikou. Or if you really wanted to, you can set up a Sunny Day and you can have a powerful fire type move to break through steel types and grass types that give Raikou some trouble. Now, those would be the kind of sets that I would be more inclined to give a try if I had access to Z moves on Raikou, but I didn't have the points to make Raikou a Z-mon because I gave the Z capabilities to Infernape, so maybe we'll be trying those sets in a different league with open Z move format or something like that. But don't count it out. I can bring any given set and any given week. So now the event Raikou comes with a rash nature all the time, and a rash nature is a positive special attack nature and a minus SPDEF nature. So if you want to run Aura Sphere, Extreme Speed, or Weather Ball on your Raikou, it has to be a rash nature, and it's not a speed boosting nature. So it's very important to note, if you want to run any of those moves, at best you'll be speed tying with max speed invested base 100 Pokemon. So Raikou's speed at 115 basically takes a hit, it drops all the way down to 100. but it does gain some more special attack with it being able to run a special attack boosting nature and Rash. Back to its base 115 speed now. Base 115 speed is actually the highest speed stat on my entire team, which is not bad, but ideally I would want it to be better. I would want another Pokemon that's even faster than base 115, like something like 125 or something like that. But I can live with 115 being my fastest Pokemon on the team. And it also has base 115 special attack, which is 1 point shy of the highest special attack stat on my team. So those are two definite areas of weakness on my team, I would say, being speed and special attack. I wouldn't call it an overwhelming weakness, but it's definitely falls short compared to some of the other areas of my team, I would say. It does also now have access to its hidden ability Inner Focus ever since Gold and Silver were released on the 3DS Virtual Console. Previously, it only had access to Pressure, and the event Raikou that I was referring to earlier can only have Pressure. There is no way that event Raikou can have the Inner Focus ability. So, when Raikou comes out onto the field, if it has Pressure, it immediately displays that to the opponent. Raikou is exerting its pressure, whereas Inner Focus, there is no message when it comes out on the field. So you can immediately tell whether or not there is a chance that Raikou could be carrying the event-exclusive moves, being Aura Sphere, Extreme Speed, or Weather Ball, by whether it is exerting its pressure when it comes out on the battlefield. If it's shiny and it's exerting pressure, then there's a chance it could have any of those moves. But if it is not shiny or it is not exerting its pressure, then right off the bat you know there is no way that this Raikou can be carrying Aura Sphere, Extreme Speed, or Weather Ball. Some other cool things about Raikou is that it has access to both screens, Reflect and Light Screen. Often you see electric types only being able to use one of the screens, most commonly Light Screen. Like Zapdos can learn Light Screen, Jolteon can learn Light Screen, Electivire can learn Light Screen, like Pokemon like that, but they can't learn Reflect on top of that. Jolteon can actually get Reflect, but it cannot have both Reflect and Volt Absorb if it wants to run that. Raikou also gets access to setup in the form of Calm Mind that a lot of electro types don't have. So it can become a powerful and bulky threat at the same time by boosting up with Calm Minds. And it also has a kind of usable physical attack stat. It gets access to coverage moves in Iron Head and Iron Tail. So if it wanted to run a physical set and get a surprise kill on a fairy such as Florges that is typically frailer on the physical side, it could run a physical set with Iron Tail. Who knows? Iron Tail if you're feeling lucky, or Iron Head if you want to go for flinches and flinch that Florges down. That's a cool meme set for Raikou too, that probably deserves a try. For my next pick, I always like to shoot for a quality ground type, and I was also looking for a solid switch into fairy types because my fire type is not resistant to fairy. Typically, fire types do resist fairy, but because Infernape is dual fighting and fire, it does not resist fairy. So my ground type is going to be the incredibly valuable Nidoqueen out of tier 6, and it's only worth 80 points, which is, I cannot believe the Nidos are such good value in this league. The number one thing that I like about Nidoqueen, it's kind of a weird thing to value about it, but I like how its typing is resistant to the Volt turn combination. Obviously, with it being a ground type, it's immune to electric types, and its poison typing makes it resistant to U-turn. The only other Mon that I can think of off the top of my head that has a better resistance to that combination is a Alolan Marowak. Of course, if it has Lightning Rod, it's going to be immune to Volt Switch, and its typing makes it so that it's ×4 resistant to U-turn. So that's definitely another Mon that I'm going to have to try out, but not on this team. Going to have to be in another team down the road. Nidoqueen is a huge hunk of clay that you can shape into any role you want. It has such good all-around bulk. It can be a physical attacker or a special attacker. The funny thing about Nidoqueen is that its special attack is its lowest overall stat, and its physical attack is its highest stat, but it's probably most commonly seen as a special attacker. That being because it gets so much coverage options on the special side. Coverage options that benefit from sheer force. They get their power boosted in exchange for their additional effects. And those special coverage options are generally, they have higher base powers than the physical coverage options. Like physical coverage options, you have Fire Punch, Thunder Punch. Those are only base 75 moves. But then on the special side, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, those moves are 90 base power. So it kind of evens itself out there. There's lots of room to run mixed sets as well. Also the fact that it's ground stab Earthquake on the physical side doesn't even benefit from sheer force, so it doesn't get a power boost, whereas Earth Power at base 90 does get a power boost from sheer force. But if you ever wanted the physical poison type move, Poison Jab, it does benefit from sheer force, so Poison Jab is its most powerful attack overall, I would say. It's too bad it doesn't get access to Stab, Physical, Gunk Shot. That would be sheer force boosted as well, and that would do so much damage on a Nidoqueen or a Nidoking especially. Nidoqueen can set Stealth Rocks, it can set Toxic Spikes, it can slap on any resistance berry that you can think of, like a Shuka Berry or a Payapa Berry, and it can retaliate with its coverage move of choice that hits the opponent super effectively, and goodbye. It can take advantage of its bulk and its wide coverage to just fill any role that you need on a team, and that is awesome. Or you can just say, forget the resistance berry, I'm going to go with a life orb and do a crap ton of damage to everything that I see in front of me. There's so much room for creativity with this Pokemon. Even if you're running a set with moves that don't benefit from the sheer force ability, you can run Poison Point on it and switch it into U-turns that it resists and have a 30% chance of getting a poison on the opponent, which is going to chip them down and maybe make themselves vulnerable to priority attacks like Mach Punch or Vacuum Wave from Infernape. So really, there's so many different things that you can do with Nidoqueen. Another one of those Mons like Infernape that is rarely going to have a bad matchup in a given battle. Now onto the Mon that I was probably most excited to draft for this team, and when you see it, you would wonder why. But at this point, I was looking for a ground resist as well as a rapid spinner. On my previous Draft League team, I didn't have a rapid spinner, and I only had 3 potential defoggers, one of them being my Mega Altaria, and another being Xatu with Magic Bounce that isn't going to typically be running defog, it's just going to be relying on Magic Bounce. So I wanted to make sure that I grabbed a good spinner for this team, and also my spinner is going to be resisting ground, because if you look at my team so far, it doesn't appreciate earthquakes. So Delmas is going to be able to take earthquakes just fine. Delmas has a signature ability in Steelworker that boosts the power of its steel type moves by 50%, which is essentially giving Delmas 3 forms of stab. It now has stab grass moves, stab ghost moves, and stab steel type moves, and it gets access to so many strong steel type moves. It can use Gyro Ball, which maxes out at 150 base power, so with stab that's going to be 225 at its maximum, and it is very slow, the slowest mon on my team, so it can definitely make use of Gyro Ball as well. Or it can use Heavy Slam if Gyro Ball isn't going to be hitting things as hard. Heavy Slam is going to max out at base 120 power. It also gets a signature steel type move, an Anchor Shot, that traps the opponent in it, and it can't switch out on successive turns, so you can use Delmas to wear down a wall that can't switch out. It also gets an extremely strong Power Whip, base 120 stab grass type move coming off of a base 131 attack. This thing really hits like a truck. I think a lot of people underestimate how much damage Delmas can do. Now, prior to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, Delmas didn't have a lot of good recovery options, and that really held it back, I think. The most common set for Delmas you would see would be a Assault Vest Attacker to maximize its survivability. But now with the Ultra Sun and Moon move tutors, it does have access to Synthesis. And Synthesis is great for it because it can it gives it that form of reliable recovery that it desperately needed. Also with move tutors, it has access to Giga Drain. And its special attack really isn't bad. For comparison's sake, it is actually 1 point higher than Amoonguss' special attack. Now, Delmas is no Amoonguss, it doesn't have Regenerator or Spore or anything, but it definitely does take ground type moves a lot better than Amoonguss does. So, special sets or mixed sets really aren't out of the question. Giga Drain and Synthesis are going to help this thing's survivability a lot more. It even gets Flash Cannon on the special side, which is going to be boosted by Steelworker. But with base 131 attack, it's probably going to be a physical set most of the time, and if it manages to get a Swords Dance up, your team's going to be taking a lot of damage from this thing. It even has the option to run a more gimmicky set with Switcheroo if you wanted to switch... if you wanted to trick a Choice Band or something like that onto a wall and cripple it in that way, that's totally possible with this thing as well. So, love this pick, super excited to give Delmas a try. For our 6th pick of the draft, we are finally going to take the Mega that I've been foreshadowing since the beginning, and surprise, it's going to be a mascot pick. We're taking Mega Gyarados from Mega Tier 2, and we're actually going to get 20 extra points to spend on our remaining 5 Mons for taking Mega Gyarados. Not being in the number 1 Mega Tier is actually makes this a really good value Mega, I would say. Seen in its shiny form here for obvious reasons. Now, it should be noted that in the IBL, you are required to Mega Evolve on the first turn that your Mega Pokemon is in battle. So that does affect Gyarados a little bit. It's not able to stay in its regular water flying type form and set up Dragon Dances, for example. So it's not able to be immune to ground type moves. It's not able to resist Bug and Fighting, which upon Mega Evolution is actually weak to both Bug and Fighting. It's not able to take Fairy hits neutrally. Once it Mega Evolves, it's going to take them super effectively as well. But that by no means makes Mega Gyarados a bad mon in the slightest. Also, because of the first turn Mega rule, Mega Gyarados is pretty much always going to be running Intimidate before it Mega Evolves and gets Mold Breaker. Its other ability, Moxie, you have to stay in regular form and get a knockout with it, and that's not going to happen if you're forced to Mega Evolve on the first turn. Anyways, Mega Gyarados, you mainly seeing doing one thing and doing it really well, and that's being a Dragon Dance sweeper. And the reason why it's such a dangerous Dragon Dance sweeper is because of its insane natural bulk. I mean, come on, it has the same HP and special defense stats as Sylveon. It's going to be able to take super effective hits and set up Dragon Dances on Pokemon that it's weak to, eat those hits, and fire back with a very powerful Waterfall or Crunch or Earthquake or anything it wants to run. Also, with its bulk, it can take advantage of type advantages, like if it's in against a fire type, such as a Heatran, for example, it can pretty much set up a free substitute with its great special bulk, and nothing Heatran can do is really going to be able to break Mega Gyarados' sub. So it can set up Dragon Dances on so many different things. It can eat super effective hits and set up in your face. It can set up substitutes in the face of Pokemon that it threatens out. Also, its ability Mold Breaker makes it a great fit for a Dragon Dance sweeper. It's going to ignore the effects of abilities like Sturdy, so you can't take advantage of Sturdy and retaliate with a counter or something like that and knocking Gyarados out. It's going to ignore the effects of Multiscale, so that if something like a Dragonite is at full HP, it's not going to die to a 4 times weak Ice Fang, but because Multiscale is ignored, yeah, you're gonna die to a 4 times weak Ice Fang, especially when it's boosted by a Dragon Dance. It's gonna ignore the effects of Unaware. Unaware would usually not care about Gyarados boosting its attack, but I am unaware of your Unaware with Mold Breaker, so I'm just gonna blow right through your Clefable or your Quagsire or something like that. Also, Mega Gyarados can function decently well as a support mon, taking advantage of its nice bulk stats, gets access to good moves such as Thunder Wave and Dragon Tail, so it can be a nice phaser. Lots of different things that you can do with Mega Gyarados. But of course, the Dragon Dance Sweeper is its primary and most deadly set. Now, I did mention earlier pairing Mega Gyarados with a reliable Cleric because it doesn't like being status most of the time. Toxic wears it down fast. Thunder Wave slows it down so it can't boost its speed as easily. Will-O-Wisp, it's going to cut its attack in half so it's not hitting as hard. But don't think if you get a status on Mega Gyarados that it is immediately dealt with. I have a replay of somebody else using Mega Gyarados in the description, a showdown replay that has a Dragon Dancing Facade Mega Gyarados, and that just completely eviscerates the opponent's team. So status alone is not the answer to dealing with Mega Gyarados, so you're going to have to be a little more creative than that. So now that we have our first 6 mons, we're going to be entering phase 2 of my draft plan. What I'm looking at to round out my draft is make sure that I use my remaining 60 Z points effectively. I'm looking at the mons in tier 7 that are worth 60 points each, and none of them are really fitting for me. None of them are really vibing for me. So I didn't actually end up taking anything in tier 7 worth 60 points. Instead, what I'm going to do is take 1 mon from tier 8 worth 40 points and 1 mon from tier 9 worth 20 points. Make those 2 mons Z mons and use my Z points up that way. So if 2 of my remaining 5 picks are only going to cost 60 points, I now have 400 points left to take 3 other mons. So I'm gonna get some good stuff. Like I've got some high tiered mons left to take, and with my next pick, I'm gonna be looking to take a steel type. I don't currently have a steel type on my team. Also looking for some more physical bulk right now with Sylveon, Raikou, Gyarados. Like, special bulk is not a problem for this team at the moment. So looking to grab some more physical bulk, I am going to grab probably also my favorite steel type to use in this format, and that's going to be Skarmory. Skarmory is the mon that I have the most experience using out of all the mons on my roster. But I haven't used Skarmory at all in Generation 7. All of the experience that I have using Skarmory was back in Generation 6. I wanted to make sure I took Skarmory this round because D-Train was drafting immediately after me, and he didn't have a Steel type on his team yet. And he did end up taking a Steel type right after me, being Cobalion. Another Mon from Tier 3, going to be worth 140 points. It can set hazards, it can clear hazards with Defog, and it can also deny hazards from going up in the first place by taunting my opponent's hazard setter. Gets hazards in the form of Stealth Rocks and Spikes. Can actually hit sneaky hard with Brave Birds, like base 80 attack isn't so bad with base 120 power Brave Birds. Now it is going to be wearing itself down with that Brave Bird recoil, but in the right matchup, those strong Brave Birds can help a lot. And don't sleep on Weak Armor Skarmory either. If it comes in on any physical attack that against a Mon that really can't do anything to Skarmory, there are so many physical attackers that just cannot do anything to Skarmory no matter how hard it tries. So with the right matchup, it can come in, get a weak armor boost, so its defense will fall, but it still will be able to wall the crap out of the opponent. Its speed is going to be doubled. It can set up Swords Dances after that and do lots of damage that way. I would say that a weak armor set is probably also better in an open Z-move format. If Skarmory was able to do a weak armor set with Supersonic Sky Strike, for example, it would be a lot more threatening. But that's not to say that weak armor is totally useless if it doesn't have access to Z-moves. And against those Mons that just have an incredibly hard time doing anything to Skarmory, it doesn't even have to invest in its physical defense to wall those Mons. If it's able to wall the physical threats necessary and then invest in its special defense, wow, are you going to have a hard time taking this Pokemon down. Another thing to note about Skarmory is the odd amount of Dark type coverage that it gets. It has access to Pursuit, so it's able to chip down Psychic types if need be. It's resistant to Psychic types upon switch in. It can use Payback. If it's slower than a fast Psychic type, it can get a powerful base 100 Payback off against a Psychic type or a Ghost type or something like that. It gets Night Slash as well as Thief to get rid of a hold item if it's already consumed its own held item. And also Assurance is cool. I have actually run Assurance before against a Mon that was switching in on hazards, and Assurance's power is doubled if it takes hazards damage on switch in. I've ran Pursuit before, I've ran Assurance and Night Slash before, so make sure you're aware of Skarmory's Dark type coverage options. Now, at this point in the draft, there were only 2 Mons left from Tier 1 that hadn't been drafted. The first being Hoopa Unbound, which went undrafted, and the second being Latias. And Latias's typing was something that I desperately needed to add to this team, and I did manage to scoop it up for 180 points. I do have some experience using Latios, but none whatsoever with Latias, but I'm super excited to use this Pokemon. It gets so many awesome moves. Healing Wish is probably one of my favorite moves in the format. It's able to sacrifice itself and fully heal its replacement, so you can imagine it using Heal Wish to revive a weakened Gyarados, cure it of its status, and now it's able to start setting up Dragon Dances all over again. Gets access to Psycho Shift, so it's able to remove status from itself, whether it's Paralysis, Toxic, or Burn, all statuses that it doesn't appreciate again, but it's able to get rid of them and affect the opponent with them instead. It also gets access to Refresh to cure it of any status, because Cycle Shift isn't always going to work. If your opponent is already statused, then you cannot transfer your statuses over to your opponent. Of course, it gets access to Reflect type, and if it's able to copy a really strong defensive typing, then this Pokemon is going to be even harder to take down than it already is. gets access to Defog. It's also the second Wish Passer on this team. It can be used as a trickster, similar to how Delmas gets Switcheroo. Latias can use Trick and trick a choice item onto a wall and cripple it that way. It also gets a signature move called Miss Ball, which is a low base power psychic type move. It only has 8 PP, and it has a 50% chance to lower the opponent's special attack by 1 stage. Now, not the best move available to it. I mean, most commonly you're going to see a Latias run Psyshock or Psychic over Miss Ball, especially since Miss Ball only has 8 PP. It's not entirely useless, but I think it would be nice to see this in future generations be buffed so that at least it has more PP, or it has a 100% chance to drop the opponent's special attack by 1 stage, because you already have attacks like Moonblast that have plenty of PP and have a 30% chance to lower the opponent's special attack. So it would be nice to see Miss Ball buffed in that way. With this pick, I'm really just piling on the special bulk on this team. This is now the 3rd Mon that I have on my team with base 130 special defense. It's also going to round out a disgusting Fairy Dragon Steel core of Sylveon, Latias, Skarmory. Who wants to go up against that? Who wants to break that core down? It also can use a priority move in the form of Sucker Punch. Who knew that Latias could learn Sucker Punch? In a pinch, who knows, Sucker Punch could win you a game from Latias' base 80 attack. Again, Latias, just so many things that it can do, so many options, so much room for creativity. One of those mons that you can bring every week and it's going to be able to help the team. So for my next 2 picks, I'm going to grab my 40-point Mon and my 20-point Mon that I'm each going to be giving Z crystals to. So for my 40-point Z-Mon, I'm looking to fill the speed gap that I currently have between Mega Gyarados at base 81 and Infernape at base 108. And right smack dab perfectly in the middle, sitting at base 95 speed, is Yanmega. Yanmega, seen here in its shiny form, thanks to Ultra Space, we're going to be able to use completely 100% legit non-gen shiny Yanmegas, being able to capture them in bulk from Ultra Space. Typically my policy with shiny Pokemon is I avoid using them if they have to be genned. If I use shiny Pokemon, I would like them to be 100% legit. I would like to have earned to use that shiny Pokemon. But in the case of Raikou and Mega Gyarados, it's pretty obvious why those 2 have to be shiny, even if they're not fully legally obtained. I guess that means that it's not going to be using its hidden ability in Frisk, because the Ultra Space Mons don't have access to their hidden abilities. But really, when are you ever going to use Frisk when you have the ability to run either Speed Boost or Tinted Lens? Tinted Lens is such an underrated ability. Who needs coverage when you have access to this ability? It's regardless of your opponent's typing, any move that it clicks is going to be doing a lot of damage to it. Speed Boost is also a great ability for Yanmega. It eliminates some of the need to run Choice Scarfers on your team. Of course, Choice Scarfers making it so that you can't use all of the moves available to you at one time. You have to lock yourselves into one move, so you can't hit the entirety of your opponent's team. So Speed Boost Yanmega makes for a great cleaner, whereas Tinted Lens Yanmega makes for a great wall breaker. Yanmega is the mon that has the highest base special attack stat on my team, and I'm not sure how often this is going to come to games, but I do think when it does come, it's going to be doing a lot of damage, especially if it's holding a Z crystal. If I want to run Z Hypnosis Yanmega, I might have to break my shiny policy rule a little bit, because only Yanma can learn Hypnosis. Yanmega cannot learn Hypnosis, so there's no way for me to get Hypnosis on the shiny Yanmega that I've caught in game. Yanmega doesn't have any notable setup moves to partner with Z Hypnosis, but still, getting the speed boost on a Tinted Lens set could be very nice. Of course, it has its stab Z-move options in Savage Spinout and Supersonic Sky Strike to take advantage of. Those are viable for either a Tinted Lens or a Speed Boost set. But if you're running a Speed Boost set and you want to run a covered Z-move such as Shattered Psyche, Never-Ending Nightmare, Balloon Doom from Energy Ball or Solar Beam even, or a Continental Crush from Ancient Power. Of course, typically in-game, you have to be able to teach your Yanma Ancient Power for it to evolve into a Yanmega, so that's not its most powerful Z-move option since Ancient Power isn't the most powerful attack, but it still could come in handy. One last cool gimmicky thing about Yanmega is that it can Pursuit Trap, so it can theoretically get some chip damage on Psychic types that it threatens out. Of course, it will threaten out any defensive Psychic types with super effective Bug Buzz, so if you want to chip down that Psychic type, for example, for something like Raikou or Infernape to deal with it later, then Pursuit Yanmega is definitely an option. For my 20-point Zmon, I'm going to grab a normal type, which I didn't already have on my roster. And in general, I think it's just one of the better Mons that was available in the 20-point tier, and that's going to be Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan is going to be the third Whispacher on my team. I have Sylveon, Latias, and Kangaskhan that can all be Wish Passers. And since Kangaskhan actually has the highest HP stat out of those three Mons, it's going to be most of the time being able to actually heal my team for even more than Sylveon or Latias would be able to. It only gets access to Wish via an event similar to how Raikou only gets access to Aura Sphere from an event. And also, little known fact, Kangaskhan also gets access to Yawn, and from the same distribution as it gets Wish from. Yawn is a cool move that can be used to force Witches, and it can be very useful. Also similar to Raikou, its hidden ability is Inner Focus, so if it wants to have either Wish or Yawn in its moveset, it can't have the ability Inner Focus. But unlike Raikou, it doesn't completely give away its ability on switch in, so you can maybe hide the fact whether or not you're running an Inner Focus or Scrappy Kangaskhan with Wish or Yawn or something like that a little bit better. At base 90 speed, it helps smooths out my speed tiers even further, fitting in between Yanmega and Mega Gyarados. Kangaskhan gets about as much coverage as Nidoqueen does. Being a normal type, a lot of normal types do get a ridiculous amount of coverage. But unlike Nidoqueen, Kangaskhan not going to be used as a mix attacker. Base 40 special attack is pathetic. Although I have seen a Kangaskhan make pretty creative use of its special attack stat in the past before. If you saw John, aka Pokemon, use it in the WBE, one time he brought a Z Thunder Kangaskhan to surprise KO a Skarmory. Well, I say surprise KO, but I'm not even sure if that did KO super effective electric type Z move from a base 40 attack Mon, but it's an option nevertheless. Kangaskhan as a Z user can really benefit from its ability Scrappy, which makes it so that it can hit ghost types with normal and fighting type moves. So if it packs a Normalium Z boosted Double Edge and fires off a Breakneck Blitz, it's guaranteed to do damage on something. Even if you switch your ghost type in, it's going to be taking damage from that normal type move. It gets access to your weather setting moves such as Rain Dance and Sunny Day, so it can boost its speed and do some damage in the process as a late game cleaner if you really want it to. Also gets access to Z Workup, which is an option. Workup usually boosts your attack and special attack by one stage, but Z Workup is going to boost your attack by an additional stage. So you're actually going to get +2 in attack as if you're setting a Swords Dance, which Kangaskhan doesn't normally get access to. It also gets access to Z Spite, which works in a very similar way to Z Heal Bell. Z Heal Bell healing the user up to full HP, and Z Spite will also heal the user up to full HP. But when you have access to Wish Protect, it's kind of hard to justify running a Z Spite set. but hey, I've made good use of Spite before if you've watched my LET battles in the past. Some other cool options it gets, Kangaskhan, of course, a prevalent priority user, especially in its mega form with Fake Out and Sucker Punch. Fake Out is going to benefit from Scrappy as well, so you're guaranteed to get some chip damage off there. And it also gets access to Circle Throw via Egg Move, which is nice. It works in the same way as Dragon Tail, so you can use Kangaskhan to phase out things and get chip damage on a lot of different mons in the team. And it's nice with its normal typing. It's not going to be taking super effective damage from a lot of different mons in the team, so it can be a good phaser in that way. And Circle Throw being a fighting type move, works well with Scrappy as well, because you're able to shuffle out those ghost types if need be. Finally, we've arrived at the last pick of the draft for me. I have 80 points left over, and I was looking at taking one of 3 mons in tier 6, or the 80 point tier. I was looking at Tentacruel, but that got taken before I was able to grab it. And I don't think that was going to be my best option for this pick anyway, so that's fine. I was also looking at Tyrantrum, but the third mon that I was looking at was the one that I thought fit my team the best for the final slot, and that was Cloister. Cloister I have actually never used competitively outside of the battle tree. I just like to send it in there, click Shell Smash, and run through the battle tree teams to rack up those battle points. Of course, with Cloister, you notice its insane physical defense stat of base 180, but it helps it out very little really with its awful defensive typing in Ice, and also its extremely low base HP. But what I really like about Cloister for this team is the extra priority that it adds in the form of Ice Shard. It also can set spikes and toxic spikes. It can also rapid spin, so it's a backup rapid spinner to Delmas, backup spiker to Skarmory, backup toxic spiker to Nidoqueen. Outside of those utility options, most of the time you're going to see Cloister as a Shell Smasher, and taking advantage of its skill link ability to fire off 5-hit Icicle Spears and 5-hit Rock Blasts. Base 95 attack doesn't look too impressive, but when you have 5-hit Icicle Spears and 5-hit Rock Blasts to fire off, it's actually not that bad at all. It did get a buff in its Water Stab, now being able to use physical liquidation. Its previous best physical water coverage was Razor Shell, which was 10 base points lower than liquidation, and also had a small chance to miss. Special sets are also not out of the question with Cloister as well. It does get access to the powerful Hydro Pump and Ice Beam. And Shell Smashing isn't the only offensive role that this thing can fill. It's not a bad Choice user. Choice Band Icicle Spear can be a good bring in a matchup that is tough to get off a Shell Smash with. It can be used well as a surprising wall breaker or a surprising scarfer. So there you have it, the entirety of the Coquitlam Red Gyarados roster for this season of the IBL D-League. Now it's time for you guys to get involved and comment on the video. What do you think about the team? What mon are you most excited to see me use this season? What do you think are some of the weaknesses of this team? And also, I would actually appreciate some constructive criticism on just the overall production of this video. Obviously, this is the first big video project that I've done on my YouTube channel, so it probably wasn't a perfect draft analysis, and I would much appreciate any comments that would help me make better videos in the future. Once again, thanks for watching. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at PlatinumHowler, and also follow at IBL League to keep up with all of the action in the league and all of the other coaches involved with the league as well. Week 1 is going to be uploaded next Monday, and every battle thereafter will go up on Mondays as well. Week 1 will be taking on Coach D. Willie and his Brisbane Scythers, and that's going to be a really fun matchup, and I'm excited to get started. So again, thanks for watching, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.